started making my product, I had never used Cam Studio, which is a screen recording program, Prezi.com and Adobe InDesign, which is a desktop publishing program, or DSLR cameras. I used Cam Studio to show some of the things I did in my magazine and put them on my blog. I learned that Cam Studio could crash easily and would disrupt all of your work because it required shutting down of your computer. This was a major problem as it could mean lost work, so I had to be especially careful. From this, I learned that I had to constantly save my work and back it up just in case of crashes, such as these. However, Cam Studio was quite easy to use and navigate, and it was easy to create videos. I used online Web 2.0 applications such as Prezi.com to create my ideas pitch. Web 2.0 means that they were interactive online applications. O'Reilly 2004. I found that there were quite a few disadvantages to Prezi, as it could be quite hard to get the hang of if you'd never used it before, and also that it required internet access to receive it. However, Prezi made the ideas pitch more interesting, and once you were used to it, it was easy. It was also easy to embed it into my blog and back it up. When I first started the project, I had some knowledge on how to use Adobe Photoshop, which is an image manipulation program, but as I progressed through this project, my skills have improved and I've learned to do many things I couldn't do before, such as photo editing, touching up images to make the model appear flawless. Some of the advantages of Photoshop in my experience are that it is quite easy to navigate. Once you've got the hang of it, you can easily find things and the tools you need to use. There are also a lot of tutorials on the internet if you need to edit text or images or create something. However, if you had never experienced Photoshop before, it can appear quite complicated because there are so many different things to do on it and so many different tools to use. Also, if you were typing something, you wouldn't know if you had spelled something wrong, as there is no spell checker or dictionary. In Adobe Photoshop, I use the Chalk 44 pixels brush effect on my double page spread to create the effect on the border and around the pull quotes. This took a lot of trial and error as I had to decide on the size and opacity and whether or not the effect looked good. I also use the pen tool quite a lot. I used it when I created my masthead. I drew my masthead with the pen tool, click stroke tool, and then filled it in with my brush. I also used it to create the signature on my contents page, but instead of filling it with the brush, I filled it with pencil. To make the album cover on my contents page, I would create gradients and then use Liquify to make them look like lava or melted. I would then merge the layers together to create the inner assortment of colours. After that, I used two rectangles to create the X and then cut the liquefied gradients into it. To create the airbrushed effect on my model's photo, I used certain effects. I first duplicated the main image layer, and then on this duplicate layer I used the dust and scratches filter, then the Gaussian blur to create a blurred image. Then I placed these under the main image and used the rubber tool on the main image to erase that layer and show certain areas of the blurred image underneath, hence creating the airbrushed effect. I also used certain tools like the eyedropper tool to make sure that my hairstyle was the same throughout and then the shades varied. When starting this project, I had never experienced InDesign and it first appears very similar to Photoshop. Personally, I didn't enjoy using InDesign as much as Photoshop because I think that some of the tools were hard to use and there weren't many shortcuts you could use to make your experience easier. Like in Photoshop, you can use Ctrl-Z to go back. However, it made making my content and double page spread easier as there were tools to make it appear more professional and like a magazine, such as columns and drop capitals. I didn't use as many tools in InDesign as in Photoshop because it doesn't have as much design elements to it. Like in Photoshop, I used the rectangle tool, the eyedropper tool and the type tool. In InDesign, if you wanted to import something into it, you had to first use the rectangle frame tool to give an area to put it in. This is one of the elements I found annoying. As I did on my double page spread on InDesign, I used paragraph formatting controls to create the drop cap. Through doing this project, I have gained more basic knowledge about the project, and if I had to use it in future, I would do it with more ease. Throughout my project, I had to complete appendices, which I would create using Windows Movie Maker. Windows Movie Maker is great if you have never edited videos before because it is easy to use and navigate, and it also does the whole job. It is a non-linear editing software that enabled me to anchor audio over visuals in a creative way. It is easy to then import the video to YouTube, then onto the blog. However, in my eyes, it had a very beginner feel to it, so if you wanted to make a video with outstanding effects on it, this was not the software for you. To record my voice for these videos, I use Audacity, which is an audio non-linear editing free software. I liked Audacity as it allowed me to edit my voice after recording and add music in the background. It also meant I could cut out parts where I stuttered or made mistakes, so I wouldn't have to start the whole piece over again. I tried using a H2 Zoom Handy mic to record my voice, but I found that the quality was poor and I also made a lot of mistakes. To take the pictures I used a DSLR digital camera, which I had never used before. I was a bit apprehensive about using it as I had only ever used basic digital cameras before. However, after having a tutorial, I found that using these cameras basically was easier than I expected. I could change the lighting and the settings to produce different effects on my image. It definitely improved my images and my photo shoot by using this camera. Other technologies I used were basic computers, a Toshiba laptop and scanners. The computers I used were easy to use and had all the data I need. Through using the computers and having limited memory, I learned that I must always back my work up on a memory stick. Various times I would lose work, and so always backing it up just made it easier if I lost work on my computers.